Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
We'll go ahead and move on to the Denver Broncos, probably the team that I want to talk about the most tonight. And, obviously, speaking about the Denver Broncos, we know how their season went. They hired Nathaniel Hackett. They traded for Russell Wilson last offseason, and everything went wrong for them. They did absolutely shit. Nathaniel Hackett ended up getting fired 2 weeks before the season ended. Russell Wilson decided he wanted to turn back the clock those last 2 weeks, play a little bit better. And now they have a new head coach in Sean Payton. They're looking to get their running back Javonte Williams back. So will Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos bounce back this season?
Like, when we say bounce back, are we talking about, they're going to get 10 wins? They're going to be astronomically better than they were last season? Or are we talking about they're going to be a 7-win team or an 8-win team? How many wins did they get last year?
Do you think these guys will be a wild card team?
How many wins did they get last year?
I want to say 5. What is it? NFC AFC West.
Damn.
Record.
Because I know in hell do I believe this team will be a wild card team. I think they'll be
last year. Yeah, 5
and 5. They're gonna be
no way to be a wild card team.
I just think, I really think the discussion is just do you believe Russell Wilson is washed? That's I think that's the main discussion. That's where everything begins. Because if we believe Russell Wilson is washed, then the defense last year performed. The defense was keeping them in games. It wasn't until that absolute beat down by the Rams, I think it was 51-14 game. That's when the defense really crumbled. But outside of that, the defense was keeping them in games. And so the question really is, do we believe Russell Wilson is washed? Is that the version of Russell Wilson that we should be expecting? And, he didn't look great at all. And part of me wants to believe that's the current Russell Wilson. That's who he is now. But at the same time, the offensive line was absolutely terrible. They did him no justice whatsoever. It got to a point where you had kickers yelling at the offensive line, block. This is your quarterback. Block for the guy. You give him some time. So the offensive line did get some help in the free agency. The defense, I do expect it to be better. Randy Gregory did disappoint. But outside of that, the linebackers are solid. The safety, they have arguably the best cornerback in the NFL, in Patrick Surtain. You have Justin Simmons, the safety. I mean, they have pieces on this defense team that's going to consistently make them solid. But is Russell Wilson washed? Is he done? Is this version of Russell Wilson the one that we've seen in Seattle? Is that one past due? Is that the one that we won't see again? I don't know. I don't feel like he was great last season at all, and I don't feel like he's going to be particularly the version of Russell Wilson that we're expecting to see, or that people want to see coming into next season. But do I think that he'll be absolute shit like he was last year? No. But I don't think he'll be elite of any sort. I don't think he'll be great, but I think he'll be solid enough to get these guys about 8 wins. So.
Russell Wilson he's selling us some fake dreams. I watched the guy play on my team. He was, cradled. He was protected. He was, given a great system. Now, once out of his, comfortability, you see what type of quarterback he is. He was dealing with a shit old line in Seattle. It was no difference than what he had in the Broncos team. It just, I feel like he just fell off. It's looking like he's falling off still. And to me, you get Javonte Williams back. He's a great running back, great young running back, but he's coming back from an ACL injury. And I don't know, man. That old line to me is they got me at guard, they got IB at center, they got Yahya at right tackle. So it's wait, I know we're not blocking, so who else is blocking for them? I promise you, there's nobody blocking. They showed the first couple of drives when he was playing in that preseason game, they was going at him. They were hitting him, getting to him, sacking him. And it's wait, I don't know who they signed on the offensive line. All I know is they made a trade for Sean Payton, and they think Sean Payton's going to take him from 5 wins to 10 wins. That's crazy to me. They do have a phenomenal defense. I'm not gonna lie, they have a great defense, but those empty drives on offense, them getting off the fields, those 3 and outs quickly getting off the fields, the defense is gonna get tired. They can't stay on that field too long, As they tend to lose, and towards the end of the game, they can't make stops, and it all goes back to the offense. So for me, I don't think Broncos are bouncing back at all. I got them sitting again at 5-12. I got them last in the division, and I think Russell Wilson's falling off. It's at that time we got to understand that he's not that quarterback that he was when he was playing in Seattle, and he's in a tough division, tough AFC, a lot of great teams. So I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't see them getting more than 6 wins.
Hey man, way to turn your back on the guy that got you a Super Bowl, man. That's it's very nice of you, bro. It's,
Legion of Boom, not him. It was Legion of Boom. Don't disrespect him. Don't disrespect.
It's not what you were telling me 6 years ago, but
I didn't know you 6 years ago, but I met you 2 years ago. Relax.
But I think this one's a little bit tough for me because coming out of last season, I thought to myself, because I know exactly what I said going into last season about the Denver Broncos, and I said that these guys were going to be, underachievers. These guys weren't going to do much. Everything that I said, it came to light, came true, and so. But then going into this season, I thought, after this last season ended, I thought, these guys are going to be a little bit better. These guys are going to bounce back, crazy. These guys are going to be, one of the best teams in the AFC. They'll be competing with a lot of the other teams. Do I think these guys are going to be Super Bowl contenders? Nah, not necessarily. I think they'll just be playoff contenders, and it won't necessarily be a debate for them, being a playoff team. But as time went on, I gotta face the reality. I gotta face the music. I gotta understand that, I don't think Russell Wilson is washed. I'll go ahead and go as far as to say that. I won't say he's washed. I think, it was a little bit of a mixture of, Nathaniel Hackett, not being a great head coach. This guy should probably never, he's probably never going to get another head coaching job again, no matter how good he does with the New York Jets. And then a mixture of that, and then Russell Wilson just not really, adapting to his new environment, getting used to, playing with a bunch of new teammates and figuring out a whole new playbook. Because I think Nathaniel Hackett plays that West Coast offense. He does come from that Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur tree. So it might have just been a little bit different for a guy like Russell Wilson. But now they got a guy like Sean Payne, a guy that's, he has a track record. He's won, but he had Drew Brees under center. It's a little bit different now. The offensive line issues, they made some signings in the offseason. How good will they be? How good will they pan out to be? I don't think they'll be that great. But the one thing that they're going to rely heavily on this year, though, is their run game. And, there's been a lot of great news coming out of Denver about that. Javonte Williams not being on the PUP list at the start of training camp. That's a great start for them. They did sign Samaje Perine, who's a good pass blocker. He's a good third down back, good pass catching back they can rely on. But Javonte Williams should be healthy and ready to go week 1. And I think he's probably, the healthiest in comparison to a guy like Breece Hall, who just got recently activated from the PUP list, and he's more ready to go than a guy like him. And so they're going to have to rely heavily on their run game. That's first things first. And I think that's what their offense is going to be. It's going to be Russell Wilson, a whole lot of handoffs to Javonte Williams, and then you normally just play action out of that, and trying to find all these receivers. My major concern is, this Jerry Jeudy guy, though, on the offensive side. Like, we've been waiting for him to take that leap, to take that next step. It's been
He did
3 years now.
He did finish the season really strong, though. Just keep that in mind.
No, he did.
And
And
the quarterback, or I think was it with Russell Wilson? It might have been with the backup quarterback.
No, I think it was with Russ, because I remember that 3 touchdown game he had. It was against I think it might have been against KC, the same game that Russ got knocked out of. But yeah, I mean, I look at the numbers, man. And I understand these guys have had a quarterback issue for years. Since Payne retired from these guys in 2015, sending them off the right way with the Super Bowl. Since 2020, we got 856 yards, 3 tugs, 467 yards, 0 tugs. I think he was injured that year. And then last year, not really cracking 1,000 yards, 972, and finishing with 6. And 3 of those touchdowns came in that one game. So, he was walking around with about 3 touchdowns for the whole season. And so I just don't think Jerry Jeudy is going to be that wide receiver, that a lot of people were expecting him to be, coming out of college. He came out with a very strong group, but I think a lot of those other guys have already separated themselves from the pack. And, you can say that you can put the blame on quarterback issue and the offense not really being how it's supposed to be, and those guys being in better situations. But, I just can't see like Jerry Jeudy taking some sort of crazy leap this upcoming season, and it's like cementing himself as like the Denver Broncos wide receiver one. I think he's a wide receiver two at best. I'm not saying that his running mate Cortland Sutton is any better. I think Cortland Sutton is just really there as a jump ball guy with that, with that Mike Evans type frame. Really a guy that Russ can rely on in the red zone. Just throw it up, and Cortland Sutton, any ball you give him is going to be a 60-40 ball going in his favor with that type of frame that he's got. And so I think Sean Payne just has to understand that Russell Wilson might not be might not be that same player he once was in Seattle, when he was airing the ball out. But if they're able to get the ground game going first, and then allowing Russell Wilson to kind of work off of that, I think they'll be in great shape. But I just honestly, initially, I thought these guys were going to be a playoff lock. But after careful consideration, I just can't see that anymore. I think these guys are going to be competing for like maybe that 7th spot for the wild card. And then whatever happens. They're going to have to roll the dice with that one. But their defense, it's the mixture of their run game and then the defense. We all know how great their defense is. It got so bad last year that I think that a defensive lineman went up to Russell Wilson like mid-game and started yelling at him to do something. Because when you're watching these games and you're looking at the box score, these guys are holding these guys to under 17 points. They're holding their opponents to under 17. And you're just wondering, how are the Denver Broncos not winning football games when their defense is playing like that? And like in one game that comes to mind for me, I think is that Monday Night Football game against the Los Angeles Chargers, where the defense is playing amazingly great. Russell Wilson has something going for him a little bit, and then all things go to shit when the offense has to put something up on the board. And so it was just a really tough season for Russ. When you're a quarterback and you've been someplace for so long, packing up your bags and going somewhere else completely different, it's going to take some time, and it took a year for him. But now there's not a lot of time that's ticking. There's not a lot of time left for the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson specifically. If I'm a Broncos fan, I'm pissed because I paid this guy top 5 quarterback money. And when you pay a guy top 5 quarterback money, you don't expect the expectations aren't to just make the wild card, make a playoff game.
Jarrett Stidham might steal that guy's job, bro. I
don't think he's that bad.
I really think they signed Jarrett Stidham just in case Russell Wilson is terrible again. I really think that's why they did that.
I don't view it like that. I think it's just to be a backup. I think it's Russell Wilson. He did get knocked out last year. I think he was out for maybe a week or two, but I don't think Jarrett Stidham is some sort of threat, to Russell Wilson. I don't think that's like I don't view it in that type of light. I think if Jarrett Stidham was nice like that, I think the Las Vegas Raiders probably would have kept him instead of paying $30 million to Jimmy G. And Jarrett Stidham looked pretty good, in that Niners game when he took over for Derek Carr that 1 week. So, but I just don't know. I just don't know if these guys are going to be willing to pull the plug on their quarterback that they paid $250 million to, like this past not this past offseason, but 2 years ago. Like, I just don't think it makes any sense. But when you pay him that much money, like I said, the expectations are through the roof. They need to go back to the playoffs. They haven't been back to the playoffs since they won the Super Bowl in 2015, which is crazy to think about. That's a crazy fact. But last time they were in the playoffs, they won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, and they haven't been back ever since. And when they acquired a guy like Russell Wilson going into last season, they thought it was going to be a cakewalk for them to make the playoffs. They were talking about how far they were going to get. They're going to go in the playoffs for them, but now they got to go back to the drawing board. They got to take baby steps. It's not something you can build overnight. But I can see these guys fighting for a wild card spot, but I can't give them anything more than that. And if that's the case, if they end up missing the playoffs again and Russell Wilson ends up not being the quarterback that the Denver Broncos want him to be, then it's gonna be a tough conversation. I don't think they're gonna just put him on the shelf and play the next guy, or they're gonna go into the draft looking for a quarterback. I think they're just going to have to make some sort of executive decision, maybe having Russell Wilson move off elsewhere to a franchise that might need a quarterback, that might just need whatever's left of Russell Wilson, and then have the Broncos move in a different direction. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see on that. But it's just extremely tough in a situation like that, though, man. The weapons aren't necessarily too great, and the defense is playing their tails off, but Russell Wilson is just, I guess, the big question mark in this picture, because I think Sean Payne would do a hell of a job, coaching these guys. But at the end of the day, the players go out there and play. But speaking about Sean Payne, though, I'm pretty sure. I mean, obviously, we all know about how he violated Nathaniel Hackett. Let's go ahead and just get some thoughts on that.
I don't even know why. That was just very random. I feel like he was just trying to get in a shot just to prove a point that this is my team now. I run the Broncos. Nathaniel Hackett. I'm not gonna sit here and say he did a great job. He did an awful job with that team. In Green Bay, he was primarily the red zone coach, and we did have the best red zone offense in the entire NFL when he was there. So I think him getting the head coaching job in Denver wasn't an ideal situation for him or for them going both ways. I don't think he was prepared to handle that job. But Sean Payton taking shots at him is just idiotic. It's, like Aaron Rodgers said, why would you take a shot at a fellow coach, a fellow colleague in the NFL? It's not like a player taking a shot at another player. That's normal. That happens all the time. But like a coach taking a shot at another coach is just kind of just like, why would you even do that? It just seems downright disrespectful. And, maybe Sean Payton was trying to poke fun or at him or whatever. But, it just didn't sit right with me that, coach is trying to, take shots at another coach. And, it makes sense why Aaron Rodgers defended his head coach. And, they called him a clown, and that's exactly what it is. It is clown behavior to go out on a limb and try to attack another head coach and, discredit his credibility. And so, I think they match up this season. I want to say it's week 5 where they match up. And so I think everybody has that circled out on their schedule. So popcorn out.
I never respected Sean Payton. I've always felt like he was a dirty, grimy coach, and he's a petty coach. And it showed him making that comment about Nathaniel Hackett. Like, this guy had nothing to do with you getting hired by the Broncos. Had no affiliation whatsoever to anything that you've done in your NFL career or coaching career. And for him just to take a shot about how horrible he was as a head coach, it just, to me, that was petty. That, to me, that childish. And to me, I never liked Sean Payton as a head coach. And it goes all the way back to him doing the Bounty Gate and everything that happened back in 2010 and 2011. And the way he always operates his team and the type of football that he runs, I never respected it. So for me, it's just petty guy, childish guy. And I respect Aaron Rodgers for stepping up for one of his former assistant coaches. So respect to Rodgers for that. Can't wait for that matchup. I know Jets are going to toast him, and he's not going to have a lot to say in the post-game interview.
It's a nice little PR move for Aaron Rodgers. I'll give him that. He got no business speaking on a topic like that. It's just trying to go in there, make a nice little headline for himself. But it is what it is. He's sticking up for a guy that was, part of his coaching tree in Green Bay. But these comments, I think for me, it just comes off as like hilarious, a little funny, a little odd at the same time. It's like, you don't want to necessarily go out there and talk about somebody that's in the same coaching tree as you. You don't want to go out and do that. Like, at the end of the day, whatever happened in Denver happened. You weren't necessarily around to see it. You're kind of just taking people's word for it, and it's like you don't want to listen to everything that you hear. But he said it himself though. He had his Fox Sports hat on. It wasn't necessarily his head coaching hat on when he said those comments. But it is that matchup is going to be really interesting though. I think those are two top defenses in the league. Obviously the Jets being better, but it's going to be one of those games where Robert Saleh's got to rally up his guys and to get up and blow these guys out of the water. And then Sean Payton with all that added pressure, all that, the biggest target on his back for that game. It's going to be interesting to see if they actually flex that game. I'm not too sure if it's like a Sunday night game or something like that, but they got to make it some sort of Sunday night game because a lot of people are going to be watching that game. So depending on regardless of what time that game is, people are going to be tuned in.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Being out late now, that's overkill.